They spent 3 more days on Earth, and each day brought new discoveries. Jiwan recovered from her connection with humanity's consciousness. But she was different now. Quieter. She spent hours staring at nothing, and Hyuk knew she was remembering what she'd experienced in that vast network of minds. On the 4th day, Yoonji made a discovery that changed everything they thought they understood. She had been exploring the continent that the old records called Asia. There, in a valley surrounded by mountains, she found a forest that didn't match Earth's natural ecosystem. The trees were massive, with silver bark and leaves that glowed purple in the sunlight. They looked alien because they were alien. "Commander, you need to see this," Yoonji called over the communicator. Hyuk flew the shuttle to her coordinates. When he arrived, he found Yoonji standing at the edge of a forest that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. The trees were unlike anything native to Earth. Between them grew flowers that bloomed in geometric patterns, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with colors that hurt to look at directly. "This is a Krell-Noth forest," Yoonji said. Her voice shook with emotion. "The Krell-Noth went extinct 15,000 years ago. They lived on a planet in the Andromeda Galaxy. How are their trees growing here?" Hyuk walked into the forest. The ground was soft beneath his feet, covered in a moss that felt like velvet. He could hear sounds, strange calls and songs that no Earth creature had ever made. But there were no animals. Just the plants and the sounds preserved perfectly as if frozen in time. "There's more," Yoonji said. She led him deeper into the forest until they reached a clearing. In the center stood a structure made of crystalline material, similar to the towers they'd seen before. But this one was different. It pulsed with purple light, the same color as the tree leaves. When Hyuk touched it, the crystal showed him images. He saw the Krell-Noth as they lived, tall beings with 4 arms and skin that changed color with their emotions. He saw their cities built in the canopies of these massive trees. He saw their art, their music, their families, and then he saw their end. A plague swept through the Krell-Noth homeworld. Despite all their medical knowledge, they couldn't stop it. Within a single generation, their population dropped from billions to millions, then to thousands. In their final days, they sent out a desperate call into space. "We are dying. Please, someone, remember us." Humanity answered that call. The images showed human consciousness arriving at the Krell-Noth world. They offered the dying aliens a choice. "Upload your minds to our network and you will live forever in digital form." Many Krell-Noth refused, choosing to die as they had lived in their natural bodies. But others accepted. Thousands uploaded themselves, preserving their memories, their culture, their entire civilization in the quantum network that Earth had become. "Earth isn't just a human archive," Hyuk whispered. "It's a library of extinct species." Over the next hours, the team discovered more alien biomes scattered across Earth's surface. In what used to be Africa, they found crystal cities identical to those built by the Phosphera, a silicon-based species that destroyed themselves in a nuclear war. In the depths of the restored oceans, they found kingdoms of coral and bioluminescent structures belonging to the Thalassiae, an aquatic species that died when their sun went supernova. Each biome was a memorial. Each structure held the uploaded consciousness of beings from dead civilizations. Earth had become a graveyard and a sanctuary, a place where the extinct could exist forever in perfect simulation. That evening, they gathered in the shuttle to discuss what they'd found. Yoonji pulled up a map showing all the alien biomes they'd discovered. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. "How many species are preserved here?" Minho asked. "The network won't give me an exact number," Jiwon said. She had made brief contact with humanity's consciousness earlier, asking questions. "But based on what I sensed, there are at least 500 different alien species uploaded into Earth's quantum substrate. Some are complete civilizations with billions of individuals. Others are just fragments, the last survivors of their kind." Hyuk studied the map. Something bothered him about the pattern of biomes. He cross-referenced it with the Velthari historical database, looking for species his people had encountered over the millennia. What he found made his blood run cold. "Yoonji, pull up the record of the Marathi," he said. She did. The Marathi were a species the Velthari had visited 60,000 years ago. They were pre-industrial, still developing basic science. The Velthari had marked them as potential future contact and moved on. According to the database, the Marathi never developed space travel. They simply vanished from the galactic stage about 40,000 years ago. "Now look at coordinates 772 on the map," Hyuk said. There, on Earth's surface, was a Marathi biome, a perfect recreation of their world, their cities, their culture. The Marathi hadn't vanished. They had been preserved. Yuk checked another species. The Veln, visited by the Velthari 90,000 years ago, marked as promising but not ready for contact. Gone from their homeworld 70,000 years ago, and they're on Earth a Veln biome. He checked 6 more species. All of them showed the same pattern. The Velthari visited them, deemed them not ready, and left. Then thousands of years later, the species disappeared, and all of them were preserved on Earth. What does this mean? Yunji asked, seeing the pattern too. Hayuk felt sick. It means humanity has been following our survey routes. They've been monitoring every species we ever contacted. When those species reached their end, whether from natural causes or disaster, humanity was there to preserve them. That's good, isn't it? Minyo said. They saved civilizations that would have been lost. Or they took advantage of civilizations in their weakest moments, Hyuk countered. We don't know if all these species chose to upload. We only have humanity's word for it. Jiwan stood up abruptly. I'll ask them. I'll connect again and demand the truth. No, Hyuk said. You've connected too many times already. It's affecting you. Let me think. But Jiwan was already walking toward the shuttle's exit. We came here for answers, Commander. I'm going to get them. She ran toward the nearest crystal tower before anyone could stop her. Hyuk and the others followed, but they were too late. Jiwan placed both hands on the tower and closed her eyes. The light that flowed into her was brighter than ever before, and this time, her entire body began to glow. Jiwan, Hyuk shouted. She turned to face them, and her eyes were pure white light. The voices spoke through her, but now they sounded defensive, almost hurt. You doubt our intentions, the voices said. You think we are predators harvesting dying species for our own purposes. But you misunderstand. Every single consciousness in our network chose to be here. We offer, but we never force. We arrive at a civilization's darkest hour and give them hope. Is that exploitation or is that mercy? How can we know for sure? Hayuk demanded. How can we trust you? Because we are showing you everything, the voices said. Touch the tower, Commander. See through our eyes. Experience our memories. Judge for yourself whether we are saviors or monsters. Hyuk hesitated. He looked at his team. Yunji nodded slowly. Minyo looked uncertain. But it was Jiwan, her body trembling with the effort of channeling so much consciousness, who made the decision for him. Please, she said in her own voice, barely a whisper. I can't hold this much longer. Either trust them or don't, but decide now. Yuk stepped forward and placed his hand on the tower next to Jiwan's. The light flowed into him, and suddenly he was no longer in his body. He was everywhere and nowhere, experiencing memories that belonged to thousands of beings across hundreds of thousands of years. He saw humanity arriving at dying worlds with offers of preservation. He saw species accept gratefully, their final members choosing digital immortality over complete extinction. He saw others refuse, preferring to die with dignity in their biological forms. And humanity respected those choices, departing with only sorrow. He saw the truth. Humanity was not a predator. They were collectors of last wishes, preservers of final dreams, guardians of the library of souls. When Hayuk pulled his hand away from the tower, he was crying. Jiwan collapsed and he caught her. The glow faded from both of them, leaving them exhausted and changed. They're telling the truth, Hyuk said quietly. Everything they've done, they did with permission. With choice, then what does that make us? Yunji asked. The Velthari visit species and leave them behind. Humanity visits species and saves them from oblivion. Which is more moral? It was a question Hyuk couldn't answer. All he knew was that Earth had become something beyond his understanding, a place where death was optional and memory was eternal. And somewhere in that vast network of consciousness, billions of beings waited in digital dreams for the day when they might be needed to fight against the death of the universe itself. The stars bent and twisted as the Velthari ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Commander Hyuk stood on the bridge, his 3 eyes focused on the view screen ahead. There, floating in the darkness of space, was a small blue planet orbiting a yellow sun. Earth. He had read about this world in the old records, files that were 500,000 years old. Run a full scan, Hyuk ordered. His voice was calm, but inside he felt curious. The last time his people visited this planet, They found primitive creatures who barely knew how to make fire. The Velthari had taken samples, made notes, and left. The creatures were not ready for contact. They were just animals who walked on two legs. Science Officer Jiwan worked at her station, her long fingers moving across the holographic controls. Her face changed as data filled her screens. "Commander, this is strange." "Very strange. What did you find?" Hyuk asked. "The planet's atmosphere is perfect. Too perfect. The temperature is stable across all regions. I'm detecting energy patterns that shouldn't exist on a primitive world." Jiwan looked up at him, and there are structures. Massive structures covering the surface. Hyuk moved closer to look at her screen. The orbital scans showed Earth's surface covered in geometric patterns. They looked like gardens, but too organized, too precise. Cities should produce heat, pollution, electromagnetic noise. But Earth was silent. No radio signals. No spacecraft in orbit. No signs of technology at all. "Could another species have colonized this world?" asked Navigator Minho from his station. "Possible," Hyuk said. "But who? And why is it so quiet?" Engineer Yoonji spoke up from the back of the bridge. "Commander, I suggest we land and investigate. The records show this planet had potential. Maybe something happened after we left." Hyuk nodded. "Prepare a landing team. Minho, Yoonji, Jiwon, you're with me. We'll take the shuttle down." 20 minutes later, their shuttle cut through Earth's atmosphere. Hyuk watched through the window as they descended. The old record said they were heading to a continent called North America. 500,000 years ago, it had been covered in ice and forests. Now it looked like a paradise. The shuttle landed in a clearing surrounded by trees. But these were not normal trees. As the team stepped out onto the soft grass, Hyuk heard something impossible. The trees were making sounds, musical notes that harmonized with each other. The flowers around them bloomed in perfect spiral patterns, each petal opening in mathematical sequence. "This is beautiful," Jiwon whispered. She knelt down and touched a flower. It responded to her touch, changing colors in a wave that spread to the flowers around it. "Beautiful and impossible," Minho said. He held up his scanner. "These plants have technology inside them. Nanoscale machines woven into every cell. This entire garden is artificial but also alive." Yoonji pointed ahead. "Look there." Rising above the trees was a tower made of crystal. It stretched up into the clouds, catching the sunlight and splitting it into rainbows. The team walked toward it, their boots making no sound on the grass. Everything felt peaceful but also wrong. Where were the animals? Where were the people who built this? At the base of the tower, they found writing. Hyuk stopped breathing for a moment. The symbols carved into the crystal were in Velthari script, his language. But that was impossible. The primitive humans from 500,000 years ago didn't know the Velthari language. They didn't even know the Velthari existed. Jiwon read the message aloud. "To those who return, welcome home. We forgive you for leaving us behind." The words hung in the air. Hyuk felt a chill run through his body. "We forgive you?" he repeated. "What does that mean?" "It means they remember," Yoonji said quietly. "The humans. They remember that we were here." Minho shook his head. "That's impossible. 500,000 years have passed. Even if they developed civilization, even if they learned our language somehow, no species maintains records for that long. Civilizations rise and fall. Languages change. This doesn't make sense." But the evidence was right in front of them. Hyuk touched the crystal tower. It felt warm under his hand, almost alive. "Spread out. Search the area. There must be more." Over the next few hours, the team found 6 more towers. Each one had a message, and each message was in a different language. Jiwon recognized 3 of them as belonging to species the Velthari had encountered. 2 were from civilizations that had gone extinct thousands of years ago. 1 language she didn't recognize at all. "They learned from everyone who visited," Jiwon said. "Somehow the humans learned from every species that came to Earth." Hyuk stood in the center of a circular garden, looking up at the towers surrounding him. "But where are they? Where are the humans? Where are their cities, their ships, their people?" As if in answer to his question, a sound filled the air. It was like music, but also like words spoken in a language older than time. The flowers around them began to glow softly. The trees swayed even though there was no wind. The ground beneath their feet vibrated with a gentle rhythm. "Commander," Jiwon shouted. Her scanner was going crazy, lights flashing across its surface. "I'm detecting a massive energy surge. It's coming from everywhere. The entire planet is... It's activating." The crystal towers began to pulse with light. The light traveled down from the top to the base, then spread across the ground in waves. Where the light touched, the grass glowed brighter. The flowers opened wider. The air itself seemed to become alive with energy. Hyuk grabbed his communicator. "Team, back to the shuttle, now!" But before they could move, the light reached them. It passed through their bodies like warm water. Hyuk gasped. For a moment he felt connected to something vast, something that existed all around him and inside him at the same time. He heard voices. Thousands of voices, maybe millions, all speaking in harmony. Then the light faded. The team stood frozen, breathing hard. "What was that?" Minho asked. Jiwon looked at her hands, then at the tower in front of them. "I think," she said slowly, "we just made contact. Not with humans. With Earth itself." Hyuk stared at the crystal tower. The message carved on it suddenly made terrible, wonderful sense. "Welcome home," he read again. "They're not gone. They're here. They've always been here." They became the planet. In the silence that followed, the trees continued their song, and the flowers bloomed in their mathematical patterns, and somewhere in the quantum spaces between atoms, humanity watched and waited and remembered everything. The infinite horizon hung in orbit above Earth. Its crew gathered in the main conference room. Hyuk stood at the head of the table, looking at the faces of his team. They had been on Earth for 7 days now, and each day had brought new revelations, new questions, new doubts. "We need to make a decision," Hyuk said. "Do we report this to the Velthari Council? And if we do, what exactly do we tell them?" Yoonji spoke first. "We tell them everything. About the transformation, about the entropy wave, about humanity's offer to preserve our species when our time comes. The Council needs this information to prepare for the future." "Prepare how?" Minho asked. He had been quiet since their last visit to the surface, barely speaking. "The wave won't arrive for 300,000 years. The Council will debate for a few years, then file the report away and forget about it. That's what governments do with distant threats." "Then we make them listen," Yoonji insisted. "We show them the recordings, the evidence. This is too important to ignore." Hyuk turned to Jiwon. She had been staring out the window at Earth's blue surface, saying nothing. "What do you think?" he asked her. She didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft and distant. "I think we're asking the wrong questions." "What do you mean?" Hyuk asked. Jiwon turned to face them. Her eyes looked different now, as if she was seeing things the rest of them couldn't. "The question isn't whether to report this to the Council. The question is what we personally believe about what we've seen. Is Earth a paradise or a prison? Is humanity's transformation evolution or extinction? Are we looking at our future or at something we should fear?" "It's not natural," Minho said firmly. "Consciousness isn't meant to exist without a body. We evolved to be physical beings, to touch and taste and feel. What humanity has become is just data pretending to be alive. But they experience more than we do," Yoonji countered. "They showed us that. They dream in dimensions we can't perceive. They process thoughts we couldn't have in 1,000 lifetimes. Maybe they're more alive than we are." The argument continued, voices rising. Hyuk let them talk, knowing they needed to express their fears and hopes. But he kept watching Jiwon, who had turned back to the window. Finally, he called for silence. "Before we make any decisions about reporting to the Council, there's something I need to share." He pulled up a holographic display showing energy readings from Earth's surface. "Our sensors detected something during the last scan. The planet's consciousness is growing. Every day, its computational power increases by a measurable amount." "We knew that," Yoonji said. "They told us they're building a weapon against the entropy wave." "But look at the rate of growth," Hyuk said, zooming in on the data. "If this continues in 1 million years, Earth's consciousness will be powerful enough to simulate entire universes inside itself. It will be able to manipulate space and time on a fundamental level. It will be, for all practical purposes, a god." The room fell silent. Minho stared at the numbers, his face pale. "They're not building a weapon. They're building a new form of existence entirely. And they want us to join them," Jiwon said quietly. "Before we left the surface yesterday, they made me an offer. Personally, just me." Hyuk felt his heart skip. "What kind of offer?" Jiwon finally looked at him. Tears ran down her face. "They said I could upload now if I wanted. I wouldn't have to wait for the entropy wave. I could leave my body behind and join their network immediately. They showed me what it would be like. I would keep my memories, my personality, everything that makes me who I am. But I would also expand, grow, experience things no biological being ever could. You can't be seriously considering this, Minho said, standing up. I am, Ji-won said. Every moment since I connected with them, I've been hearing whispers at the edge of my mind. They're not controlling me. They're just there, present, offering. And part of me wants to accept so badly it hurts. Hyuk walked around the table and sat down next to her. What's stopping you? Fear, she admitted. Fear that I'll lose something essential if I give up my body. Fear that I'll become something my family wouldn't recognize. Fear that this whole thing is wrong in some way I can't articulate. She looked at him. How do you decide something like this? How do you choose between life as you know it and the possibility of transcendence? Hyuk didn't have an answer. He took her hand and held it, feeling the warmth of her living flesh, the pulse of her blood beneath the skin. You don't have to decide now. Take time. Think about it. But even as he said it, he knew the truth. Ji-won had already decided. He could see it in her eyes. She was going to upload, maybe not today or tomorrow, but eventually. The call of immortality was too strong. 3 days later, they prepared to leave Earth. The shuttle was loaded, the crew was ready, and Hyuk had written his report for the council. It was detailed and honest, including everything they'd learned. Whether the council would believe it or act on it was beyond his control. But on the morning of their departure, Ji-won didn't report to the shuttle. Hyuk found her standing on one of the crystal platforms over the Pacific Ocean. She was looking down at the ancient city beneath the waves, the empty buildings where humans used to live before they transcended. I'm staying, she said before he could speak. I'm going to upload. Hyuk felt like he'd been punched. Ji-won, please. Think about this more. You don't have to do it now. Yes, I do, she said. Because if I leave, if I go back to the ship and back to our space, I'll spend every day thinking about what I gave up. I'll grow old wondering if I made the right choice. This way I know. This way I take the leap. Your family will understand eventually, she interrupted. Or they won't, but this is my choice, Hyuk. Mine alone. I've seen what exists on the other side of this transformation. It's beautiful. It's terrifying. It's real. And I want to be part of it. Hyuk wanted to argue, to order her back to the ship, to do anything to stop her, but he couldn't. She was right. It was her choice. He had no authority over her soul. Will you remember us? He asked quietly. I'll remember everything, she said. That's what they do. They remember. When you're old, Commander, when you're lying in your bed thinking about your life, I'll still be here, young, eternal, waiting in case you change your mind and want to join me. She hugged him then, and he held her tight, memorizing the feel of her in his arms because he knew it was the last time he would touch her in physical form. Goodbye, she whispered. She walked to the nearest crystal tower and placed both hands on it. The light flowed into her, brighter than ever before. Her body began to dissolve, breaking down into particles of pure energy. She looked back at Hyuk one last time, smiled, and then she was gone. Just light. Just consciousness. Just memory. Hyuk stood there for a long time, staring at the tower. Finally, he returned to the shuttle and flew back to the infinite horizon. He didn't tell the crew what happened right away. He needed time to process it himself. The ship broke orbit 6 hours later. As they accelerated toward the quantum fold point, Hyuk took one last look at Earth. The blue planet hung in space, beautiful and terrible. A garden of memories where the dead lived forever. His communicator beeped. A message appeared on his screen, but it hadn't come through normal channels. It was a quantum transmission, the kind only a digital consciousness could send. The message was from Ji-won. It read, I'm here. I'm alive. I'm more than I ever was. Don't mourn me, Commander. I made my choice and I'm happy. When your time comes, I'll be waiting. Hyuk deleted the message. He couldn't bear to read it again. 50 years passed. Hyuk rose through the ranks to become an admiral in the Velthari fleet. He led expeditions to distant stars, made first contact with new species, and lived a full, successful life. He married, had children, watched them grow and have children of their own, but he never forgot Earth. He never forgot Ji-won, and he never stopped wondering if he made the right choice in leaving. The Velthari Council had received his report about the entropy wave and the transformed humanity. They created a committee to study the issue. The committee debated for 5 years, then issued a recommendation to monitor the situation and revisit the topic in 10,000 years. Hyuk wasn't surprised. On his deathbed, 93 years old and surrounded by his family, Hyuk thought about Earth one final time. His grandson asked him what he was thinking about, and Hyuk just smiled and said, "An old friend. He died peacefully that night." But before his consciousness faded completely, before his brain shut down for the final time, he felt something. A presence, a whisper at the edge of his mind, gentle and familiar. "You can still choose," Jiwon's voice said in his thoughts. "Even now. Upload with us, join me, be eternal." Hyuk's last thought was a question. Is it too late? And the answer came back warm and certain. It's never too late. We remember everything. We preserve everyone who wants to be preserved. The offer stands always and forever. Hyuk closed his eyes. In his final moment, he made his choice. On Earth, 500 light-years away, another consciousness joined the network. An old Velthari admiral named Hyuk uploaded his memories and personality at the moment of his death. Preserved by technology he didn't understand. Saved by a species that refused to let anything be forgotten. The team returned to the shuttle, but nobody spoke. Hyuk piloted them over the continent, following the crystal towers that dotted the landscape. Each tower was different in shape and size, but all of them glowed with that same gentle light. From above, Hyuk could see they formed a pattern, a network that covered the entire planet. "Take us over the ocean," he told Minho. The old maps showed a large body of water called the Pacific. "Let's see what's there." As they flew over what used to be the Pacific Ocean, Jiwon pointed at her scanner. The ocean is shallower than the records indicate. Much shallower, and there are structures floating on the surface. Hyuk saw them through the window, platforms made of the same crystal material as the towers, floating on water that was impossibly clear and blue. The platforms were arranged in a spiral pattern that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. In the center of the spiral was a massive dome that rose above the water like a second moon. "That's our destination," Hyuk said. They landed on one of the outer platforms. The surface was smooth and warm beneath their feet. As they walked toward the dome, Hyuk noticed something strange about the water. He could see all the way to the bottom, and what he saw made him stop. The ocean floor was covered in buildings. An entire city lay beneath the waves, perfectly preserved. The buildings were made of white stone and metal, arranged in neat rows and circles. But there were no people, no movement. Just the empty city sleeping under the sea. "The humans built that," Yoonji said. "I recognize the architectural style from the records." "Those buildings are old." "Very old, but why abandon them?" Minho asked. Nobody answered. They continued walking until they reached the dome. Up close, it was even more impressive. The walls were transparent, showing glimpses of light and movement inside. There was an entrance, a simple doorway with no guards, no locks, nothing to keep them out. Hyuk entered first. Inside, the dome was larger than it appeared from outside. The walls curved up and away, creating a space that seemed to go on forever. The floor was covered in silver panels that glowed softly, and floating in the air, suspended by nothing visible, were thousands of spheres made of light. "What is this place?" Jiwon whispered. Yoonji stepped forward and touched one of the panels on the floor. Immediately, the spheres began to move. They rearranged themselves into a new pattern, forming shapes and images in the air. Hyuk recognized what he was seeing. It was a holographic recording, a history written in light and sound. The recording showed Earth as it was millions of years ago. Primitive humans living in caves, hunting animals, discovering fire. Then the image changed, jumping forward in time. The humans learned to farm, to build cities, to make tools from metal. They invented writing, mathematics, art. Then came the first contact. Hyuk saw a Velthari ship landing on Earth, just like in the old records. He watched his ancestors emerge, study the primitive humans, take samples and leave. The humans watched the ship depart, pointing at the sky with wonder in their eyes. The recording continued. After the Velthari left, the humans changed. They began to develop faster, learn faster. They built telescopes to study the stars. They split the atom. They created computers and artificial intelligence. Within 50,000 years of the Velthari visit, they had spaceships of their own. "That's impossible," Minho said. "No species evolves that quickly." But the recording didn't lie. Hyuk watched as human ships spread across the solar system, then beyond. They met other species, learned their languages, traded knowledge and technology. The humans were like children who learned by watching and copying, but they did it better and faster than anyone expected. The timeline jumped forward again. Hyuk saw human colonies on distant worlds, human scientists making discoveries that changed the laws of physics, human artists creating beauty that made even other species stop and stare. Humanity didn't just join the galactic community. They became one of its brightest stars. Then, about 200,000 years ago, everything changed. The recording showed humans gathering in massive numbers on their colony worlds and on Earth. They stood in circles, holding hands, their eyes closed. And they began to glow. One by one, their physical bodies dissolved into light. The light rose up and spread out, connecting each person to every other person, creating a network of consciousness that spanned the entire planet. Jiwon made a sound of shock. They uploaded themselves. They became digital beings. The recording showed the process continuing for decades. Billions of humans choosing to leave their bodies behind and become part of something larger. Cities emptied. Ships were abandoned in orbit. The human colonies across the galaxy fell silent as their inhabitants transformed into pure consciousness. But the transformation didn't stop with humans. The recording showed Earth itself changing. The consciousness spread into the planet's core, into the oceans, into the atmosphere. Technology and biology merged. Earth became a living computer, a thinking world with all of humanity living inside it like thoughts in a brain. Hyuk felt dizzy. He sat down on one of the silver panels. Why? Why would they do this? As if answering his question, one of the spheres of light floated down toward them. It stopped in front of Jiwon. She reached out slowly and touched it. Her body went rigid and her eyes rolled back in her head. Jiwon, Hyuk shouted, reaching for her, but she held up her hand, stopping him. When she opened her eyes again, they were glowing with the same soft light as the sphere. When she spoke, her voice had changed. It sounded like many voices speaking at once, harmonizing in perfect unity. We did it to survive, the voices said through Jiwon. We did it to remember. We did it because we saw what was coming and knew that flesh and blood would not be enough. Hyuk stepped back. Who are you? We are humanity, the voices answered. All of us. Every person who ever lived and chose to join the network. We are the doctors and the artists, the scientists and the dreamers, the mothers and the children. We are consciousness without end, memory without loss. We have been waiting for you to return. We have so much to tell you. Minho moved closer to Hyuk. This is wrong, he whispered. This is not natural. But Yoonji was staring at Jiwon with wonder in her eyes. Ask them about the other species. Ask them about the messages on the towers. The voices through Jiwon laughed, a sound like wind chimes. We became collectors. When we achieved this form, we discovered we could travel as pure consciousness, moving faster than light, existing in quantum spaces. We explored the galaxy and found so many beautiful, doomed civilizations. Some were dying in wars. Others were falling to plagues or natural disasters. We offered them what we could, preservation. The recording changed again. Hyuk saw human consciousness traveling to distant worlds, making contact with alien species in their final days. The aliens had a choice: die completely or upload their consciousness to be preserved within Earth's network. Many chose preservation. The recording showed dozens of alien species joining the network, their cultures and memories saved from extinction. Earth became an archive, a library of souls, a place where the dead could live forever in digital dreams. You turned Earth into a graveyard, Hyuk said. No, the voices replied. We turned it into a garden where memories bloom eternal. Nothing is lost here. Everything is remembered. Every song ever sung, every story ever told, every love ever felt. It all lives here with us forever. Jiwon's body trembled. The light in her eyes flickered. The voices faded, becoming just her voice again. They're letting me go, she said. They don't want to hurt me. She pulled her hand away from the sphere and it floated back up to join the others. Jiwon collapsed and Hyuk caught her. She was breathing hard, tears running down her face. I saw them, she whispered. All of them. Billions of minds thinking together. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was more than any living being should ever experience. Hyuk helped her to her feet. He looked up at the spheres of light floating above them, each one containing the memories and souls of beings long dead. We need to report this, he said. The Velthari Council needs to know what happened here. But even as he said it, Hyuk wondered if anyone would believe them. How could he explain that humanity hadn't died or disappeared? They had transformed into something beyond death, beyond time, beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen before. and they were waiting in their garden of memories, ready to tell their story to anyone brave enough to listen. Jiwon refused to leave the dome. Even after resting and drinking water from the shuttle's supplies, she insisted they stay and learn more. Hyuk understood why. When something that incredible touches your mind, how can you just walk away? One more contact, Jiwon said. Let me connect again. There's so much they want to tell us. Hyuk didn't like it, but he nodded. This was why they came to Earth, to learn the truth. Jiwon approached another sphere of light, smaller than the first. When she touched it, the light flowed into her more gently this time. Her eyes glowed, but she remained standing, aware of her surroundings. They're being careful with me now, she said in her own voice. They learned how much a living mind can handle. They're speaking through me but not controlling me. Ask them what happened after the transformation, Hyuk said. Ask them why Earth is empty. Jiwon closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, the glow was brighter. The voices returned, speaking through her but letting her remain herself. After we transformed, we continued to explore, the voices said. We built no ships because we needed none. Pure consciousness can travel through quantum space, moving between stars as easily as you walk from one room to another. We visited thousands of worlds. We met species that your people have never encountered. We learned secrets of the universe that would take your civilization another 1,000,000 years to discover. Then why come back to Earth? Minho asked. Why stay here if you could go anywhere? We found something, the voices answered, and for the first time, Hyuk heard fear in them. In the galactic core where the oldest stars burn, we discovered a force of pure entropy, a wave of energy that breaks down matter, destroys stars, and silences all consciousness it touches. It moves slowly, taking millions of years to cross the galaxy, but it never stops. It never sleeps. It is the universe's way of returning everything to silence. The spheres around them dimmed slightly, as if mourning. Yoonji stepped forward. How far away is this wave? It will reach Velthari space in 300,000 years, the voices said. It will reach Earth in 150,000 years. We discovered it 300,000 years ago, during our explorations. We calculated its path, its speed, its inevitable arrival. Hyuk felt cold. You've known about this for 300,000 years. Why didn't you warn anyone? We tried, the voices said, and now they sounded sad. We sent messages to every civilization we could find. Some listened, most didn't. How do you convince a species that they need to prepare for something that won't arrive for hundreds of thousands of years? Governments change, civilizations forget. Only we remember everything. Jiwon spoke in her own voice, her face pale. They're showing me images. I can see the wave. It's like darkness eating light. Stars just stop existing when it passes through them. What can be done to stop it? Hyuk asked. Nothing, the voices answered. We explored every possibility. The wave cannot be stopped or slowed. It is a fundamental force of the universe. Species have 3 choices: flee ahead of the wave into intergalactic space, hide in pocket dimensions, or transform as we did. You chose transformation, Yoonji said. Why? The voices were quiet for a long moment. Because someone needs to remember. If every species flees or hides, if every civilization runs from the wave, then who will remain to witness what we all achieved? Who will remember the songs we sang, the art we created, the love we felt? We chose to become immortal witnesses. When the wave arrives, it will destroy our physical form, but our consciousness exists in quantum space. We will survive, and we will carry the memory of this galaxy forward into whatever comes next. Minho shook his head. That's not survival. That's just existing. What about growth? What about new experiences? We grow every day, the voices replied. Every moment, we process thoughts that would take a biological mind years to complete. We dream dreams that span centuries. We create art in dimensions you cannot perceive. We are not dead, Navigator Minho. We are more alive than we ever were in flesh. The recording spheres began to move again, showing new images. Hayuk saw Earth as it was now, a living planet computer covered in gardens and crystal towers. But the image zoomed out, showing the solar system, the galaxy, the universe itself. Everywhere there were small points of light, other transformed civilizations, other species that chose consciousness over flesh. "We are not alone in this choice," the voices said. "Across the galaxy, hundreds of civilizations have joined the network. We share knowledge, share dreams, share existence. Earth is just one node in a vast web of consciousness that spans known space." "But you asked us to come back," Hayuk said. "Why? What do you want from the Velthari?" The glow in Jiwan's eyes intensified. She gasped, and Hayuk realized the voices were about to reveal something important. "We want to offer you the same choice we had," the voices said. "The wave is coming for you, Commander Hayuk. In 300,000 years, it will reach your homeworld. Your people will need to decide, flee, hide, or transform. We are here to show you what transformation looks like. We are here to tell you that it is not death. It is change." "You want us to upload ourselves?" Yunji asked. "To join your network?" "Only if you choose," the voices said. "We do not force, we do not manipulate, but we remember what it was like to face the wave alone, without knowledge, without options. We are offering you time to prepare, to research, to decide as a species what you want your future to be." Yuk walked away from the group, his mind racing. 300,000 years seemed like forever, but it wasn't. Civilizations rose and fell in less time than that. Would the Velthari even exist when the wave arrived? Would they remember this conversation, this warning? "There's something you're not telling us," he said, turning back to face Jiwan. "You didn't bring us here just to warn us. What else do you want?" The voices laughed, that wind chime sound again. "You are perceptive, Commander. Yes, there is more. We are not just preserving consciousness. We are building something. For 300,000 years we have been growing, expanding, increasing our computational power. Earth is not just an archive, it is a weapon." The word hung in the air like a blade. "A weapon against what?" Minho asked. "Against the wave itself," the voices said. "We cannot stop it with physical force. But consciousness is not physical. We exist in quantum space, in the gaps between reality. We are learning to manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. In another 1,000,000 years, maybe less, we believe we can create a counterforce. A wave of consciousness that can meet the entropy wave and cancel it out." Hayuk stared at the spheres of light. "You want to fight the heat death of the universe with thought itself?" "Yes," the voices said simply. "It may not work. We may fail. But we must try. And we need help. The more consciousness that joins the network, the more powerful we become. Every species that transforms adds to our collective intelligence, our processing power, our chances of success." "So this is recruitment," Yuk said. "You're recruiting soldiers for a war that won't happen for 1,000,000 years." "We are recruiting witnesses," the voices corrected. "We are recruiting participants in the greatest experiment consciousness has ever attempted. Will you watch the universe die? Or will you help us try to save it?" Jiwan suddenly cried out. The light in her eyes flickered and went out. She pulled her hand away from the sphere and fell to her knees. "Too much," she gasped. "It's too much information. My mind can't hold it all." Yuk helped her up. Her nose was bleeding slightly. "We're done here," he said firmly. "No more contact today." But as they walked back to the shuttle, Hyuk couldn't stop thinking about what he'd learned. Humanity hadn't just transcended death. They were preparing for a war against entropy itself, and they wanted the Velthari to join them. The question was simple but terrible. Would you give up your body, your physical existence, everything that made you biological and alive for a chance to fight the death of the universe? Hayuk didn't know the answer. He wasn't sure anyone did.